Roob, we're back from Phoenix. We're in Philly. We're in South Philadelphia in our little studio here. How you feeling?
Oh, it's good to be home. Arizona is a great host. Really was a terrific host city. I got to give props to our pilot. It was not a prop plane, but he got us back in 3:45 from Phoenix to Philly last night. He was riding those tailwinds.
I looked up at one point. I woke up from a nap. I look over. You've got Flight Aware up. You're tracking our progress.
Well, it was really cool. So we're flying over Western Pennsylvania, and I see. So I'm always on Flight Aware, and I see a plane. There's a flight from Washington to Cleveland, and I'm watching our route, and it looks like we're about to cross each other.
Did you hit the button?
I alert the pilot. Flight attendant, can you please let the pilot? So we're at 28,000 feet, and the other flight's at 27,000 feet. And I'm watching, and I enlarged it so that air. So because the more you enlarge it, the better. Mm-hmm. And it went right over us 1,000 feet. So I'm thinking, is that normal? So on the way out, I asked the pilot. I grilled him pretty good about it. And he said, under 30,000 feet, you just have to be separated by 1,000 feet. He said, it's normal. He said, we were actually at 28,008 feet, and they were at 27,000 feet. So he said, it's totally routine. It's just the way the routing is. I asked him if he waved to the other pilot.
Was he like, sir, please exit the aircraft?
He did ask for federal marshals to meet him, but no, it was it's good to be home. We were gone a while. It was a great experience, but it's good to be home.
It was a great experience. We are back. It didn't end the way the Eagles wanted it. It didn't end the way you guys wanted it to end. But that's the way it goes sometimes. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. He's Reuben Frank.
And you wrote a really uplifting column.
Dave Zangaro, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Locker cleanout day was on Tuesday. You and I were both there as the Eagles kind of said their farewells until OTA. Some of them say goodbye forever. They won't be back. And we know that the two coordinators won't be back. Right before we started this podcast, we learned that Jonathan Gannon is leaving for good. Shane Steichen is gone. So we'll get into that stuff in a little bit. But Rube, let's start with cleanout day. Talked to a few players. One of those players was Jalen Hurts. It's tough for everyone to try to get over this, but he seems to have the most poise in doing it, which isn't surprising.
Yeah, and I don't know if I can do this, but I've been trying to get a picture of Jalen Hurts smiling for 3 years, and I finally got one. And Jalen Hurts smiling, and then
what was he smiling about?
Something happened with somebody was arm was shaking, holding a mic.
Oh yeah, so like the
Jalen, you never see him smile, so it's good to see him smile.
Yeah, he smiles plenty. Maybe not always in news conferences.
Yeah,
but
when we're not around, he's always smiling.
So someone was struggling to hold. It is hard to hold out a microphone for 5 minutes or so. So someone's hand started shaking. He made note of it. He said all the right things, which is not surprising. I believe him. I believe that he's going to try to learn from it. And he said he watched the game back and tried to view it like he would any other game. He said he has a 24-hour rule, but even he kind of chuckled at the absurdity of that because it's not a normal game. The stakes are raised. It just means more. And that was kind of the sentiment from a lot of guys. Like, nothing you can do now. Like, it's over, and you can choose to dwell on it, which some guys are going to do, or you can try to move on from it.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Jalen today. And sometimes when he speaks, he's very vague, speaks in generalities that don't always have a lot of meaning. They're just kind of aphorisms and truisms and cliches. It was a short press availability today. It was cut off by the PR department after about 5 minutes and 15 seconds.
More than that. It was like over 6.
Was it over 6?
For the sake of fairness.
Yeah, it was disappointing either way. But I'm just really struck by, and I'm looking for the quote. I'm really struck by just how driven he is to improve no matter what. I mean, he played a historic game. I mean, at 24. To play at that level in a Super Bowl, and he all he talks about, I mean, there's no sense of, I'm great. I played really well. I mean, he just sat there and talked about learning. And he said, it stings, but I'm embracing everything that comes with it. I'm embracing the challenge ahead. And this team will have that mentality moving forward. There's a true eagerness to move forward with the right intention, the right focus, the right type of fortitude. He said, oh man, I wish I could find this, but everything's about improving and getting better. And I think his teammates feed off that, and it's genuine. It comes from a real place. I mean, he's not one to pat himself on the back or ever be satisfied. He'll never be satisfied. I think that's what we're learning. No matter, I mean, if they'd won the Super Bowl and he threw for 4 touchdowns and ran for 3, he'd be talking about what he could learn from the plays he didn't make. You hope that he could enjoy it and appreciate everything, but as far as the effect it has on the people around him, it's immeasurable. I mean, he's just, when you have a guy that's never satisfied and never stops working, then you're going to want to work just as hard.
Yeah. And we talked on the last pod right after the game, feeling robbed that we didn't get to see him on that drive. I also feel like, obviously secondary to that, I feel robbed that I didn't get to see him celebrate because I was really looking forward to seeing what he would do, because we haven't seen him, like, in moments we see him cut loose on the field and celebrate with his teammates. But I was very curious to see what the biggest celebration would look like for him, because he is so forward thinking and he's always about getting better. And there's always this drive. I was just curious to see what would happen if he, if he's standing up there Super Bowl MVP. Like, it's hard to say that at that point. Like, now you get to celebrate. You get to be on the mountaintop. He was so close to it.
He would have sat in his locker quietly smoking a cigar. I think that's what he said. The quote I was looking for is, going into year 4, I'm hungrier than ever, starving for more. I just want to challenge myself to be the best quarterback, the best leader I can be for my teammates in the city, impact the people around me in the right way. This is 2 days after getting to the Super Bowl. Yeah,
it's maturity, and it's the maturity we've seen from him since day one. I mean, his arrival here. He was asked about the contract. Didn't want to get into that very clearly. Said there'll be a time for that. Today is not that day. Kind of is. It's, today is that day, or if not today, a day very soon. Eagles are going to have to figure that out, and it's going to be massive. But knowing what we know about the organization, they're going to want to get this done.
Well, they have to.
Yeah, the price tag isn't. Well, they don't have to, but.
Well, no, they don't have to. But I mean, they have to in terms of being able to take the next steps.
Yeah,
I mean, they don't have to do it now, but I mean, it'd be a big mistake if they don't.
Yeah, and the way this organization operates is like they try to get ahead of these things all the time.
Yeah, and if you wait a year, you can end up paying him a lot more money. Mm-hmm. And he could say, I don't want to come back here. He'd be an unrestricted free agent.
Yeah, and I think you could also end up in a situation like Baltimore and Lamar where it's not a good relationship because of it. And I think they want to avoid that. And if they know Jalen's a guy and they know Jalen's a guy, I have every expectation that they will figure out this contract this offseason.
And a lot of people have tweeted me asking if he'll take less money so how he can sign more guys around him. It's just not fair to.
Like maybe a very, very slight discount than what he would get if he eventually hits free agency and he's on the open market. But he's not going to take $25 million a year,
and he shouldn't.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know the numbers are different, but like the notion of I'm just going to take less money than I'm worth, like, people don't do that, and you can't do that for the other quarterbacks in the league, because he's going to be setting he and a couple other quarterbacks will be setting the value, setting the market. Yeah. If he takes less, it hurts the other quarterback. So,
and he deserves to be paid the going rate.
Yeah. And
if he gets to dictate the going rate for the next wave, then so be it. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be a big deal. It's going to be $45 million plus.
I think that's going to be right where it is, between 45 and 47 million. Certainly the way he played Sunday isn't going to lower his value.
Yeah, that's for sure. I was impressed with him. Anything else from his short media availability that stands out?
He did talk about Shane Steichen briefly. Everything was briefly. Just gave him a lot of credit for where he is, the 2 years they had together, said he learned a lot from him. And said he really appreciated it. And, says, I know he'll do a great job in Indy. And he's a really good coach. I really enjoyed the 2 years around him. It's a shame that he never let his personality show in his
Steichen
interviews. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because he's funny as hell. He's got a great personality. I think he's a really brilliant offensive mind. And the Colts are getting a good one.
Yeah,
you got to get a quarterback.
Yeah, we'll talk about those coordinators in a little bit, but I'm curious to see how they handle being the head coach in terms of like in front of the public.
Yeah,
because it's a little tricky when you're a coordinator because you have aspirations to be that, but you're not that, and you're under a different coach, and you don't want to take any limelight from that coach. It's kind of sometimes tricky.
I think Steichen more than Gannon just because he's under an offensive coach, and I think he's just naturally a little more reticent than Gannon. And, but I think he'll be fine. I think Gannon will be, they'll really, the guys in Arizona, there's not many of them, but they'll like Gannon.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Moving on, A.J. Brown was clearly dejected.
Yeah.
He said he was kind of dreading doing an interview. He didn't talk after the game, I don't believe. And he clearly didn't want to do it, but I give him credit. He stood there and answered some questions for a while. Clearly, he admitted he still thinks the future is bright, but he couldn't even wrap his head around it. He's still going through this kind of mourning period after the Super Bowl loss. And that's why I think it's good to have players like Jalen Hurts, because if there are, I'm not saying AJ should be able to flip right away. That's hard to do. You should be able to feel things, and that's a heartbreaking loss. But if anyone lingers too long on that, I think Jalen Hurts is the right guy to say, hey, let's get back to work. But AJ was clearly upset, and I get it. It's hard to get to the Super Bowl. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, but we have a little clip here of AJ we want to play just for everyone to hear it.
When we went up 27-21, I knew deep down that it was probably a chance we were going to lose.
Because you got the field goal there instead of the touchdown?
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel like at the end of that game, if you guys were to get a full drive, you would have been able to win that game?
I think so. I think that when they went up 2 touchdowns and we went down and scored, so I thought we had a chance to get the ball in the hand last. We were going to be fine.
What gave you that feeling after the field goal that it might not go your way?
My previous year, I went to Tennessee. We threw an interception on we had the ball last. We had a chance to go overtime or to try to win, and we threw an interception. And I had that same feeling in my gut because we got 3. And playing against Patrick Mahomes, he was just doing everything right, and he put his team in a great position to win. He did a great job all game, so that's why.
Yeah, so you could tell by his tone, it's rough on him right now. He's going through it. And I think some people thought he was criticizing Nick Sirianni's decision to kick a field goal. I don't think he was. I think he was just lamenting the fact that they had to settle for 3 there. And, we talked about it in the postgame pod, you start trading field goals for touchdowns against that team, you're in a bad way.
Yeah, field goals against Patrick Mahomes get you beat against great quarterbacks. Yeah, and I'm not quite sure how to say this, but yeah, that quote was maybe not presented totally accurately in a couple places. So that's the real quote. You just heard him say it. It doesn't bother me at all. I mean,
I had the same feeling. I was watching the game thinking,
it's a natural feeling.
Man, can't get field goals.
Yeah, you just can't. So it doesn't mean his effort was any less.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean.
I don't even think it's like a knock on the defense. It's just like there's an alien on the other team playing quarterback, and he's going to score.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think one thing that we kind of, understandably why it kind of got lost in that game is just how well Devontae and AJ played, and Goddard, all three of them. Goddard had 6 catches. I don't think any of them was uncontested. They were all.
He was great.
Kelsey was like wide open, and Goddard's like just making these crazy plays. But yeah, they're actually the first pair of wide receivers, 25 and under, to have 90 plus yards in the Super Bowl. Teammates. They're going to be here with Jalen for a long time. That's exciting. But yeah, it's funny how different people react. I talked to Jordan Mailata for quite a while at his locker, and he said he was just like still processing everything. He said it doesn't. He said, he said also, like Jalen, he said, I have a 24-hour rule, but he said, I don't really know how many hours it's been. Like, he says, I don't even know what day it is. So I don't know.
I thought it was funny. Jalen mentioned the 24-hour rule and even chuckled because he's like, I know.
Yes,
it's a Super Bowl.
Yeah. He did. But Mailata talked a lot about Jalen and just what a comforting feeling it is to know that he's going to be their quarterback. And, and just how he just can't believe that there's actually people out there that still question him, doubt him. And he said that's been a major motivator for the whole team all year. He said we're all really protective of him. He's our leader, he's our quarterback, and we hear people saying things that aren't true about him or not giving him credit. We rally around him. They really love that guy, and
they absolutely do.
Yeah,
they have from the moment he stepped in the building.
Yeah.
What's funny? So
the other guy never had a chance, did he? 2020.
No,
never had a chance.
I think it's the way different players deal with the emotions of this is just different. It's like how it's grief. It's not as serious as like losing a family member or friend, but like people deal with these things in different ways. It's, some people have like gallows humor. Like I'm always I joke about things that you shouldn't joke about. And I think there's some of that in the building. It's like, it's like, what are you going to do? It happened. And some people just handle it differently.
There's so many different things going on at once. Like there's the reality of losing the game. There's the reality of this is the last time I'll be with this group of people. Yeah. 20 of these guys won't be here next year. And then there's a reality of they've been in the same routine of coming into the building every day or almost every day since July. And like Jordan was saying, like, I got to go make plans to fly to see my family in Australia. All I want to do is come back here and practice tomorrow. He said, it's just, he said, you're almost in denial. It's like you get into that routine and there's so much comfort in a routine. And he said, I just want to come here tomorrow.
And when you get that far, you start really visualizing winning the whole thing. Like you don't go into it thinking about this possibility, because if you do that, then it's kind of a defeatist attitude. So like you go through, those 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl thinking we're going to win this thing. And you like visualize yourself winning it. And then when it doesn't happen, it's like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Where do you go from here?
And there was an abruptness, they had that game under control. Up until when did the Chiefs took the
even when they took the lead, the Eagles came back and tied it up at 35.
Tie game with what? With 5:20 left. You're tied in the Super Bowl. And they got the ball in their own 25, and you're thinking get a stop and go score and celebrate. It just didn't happen.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard for a lot of people to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Other stuff we got from Locker Cleanout Day. I'll go first and I'll send it back to you. But Hassan Reddick, talked to him for a while. Interesting, because he came here, and he was new to this defense, and there were some really veteran leaders here. But he said throughout the year he started to try to pick up his leadership role a little bit. And we heard he was one of the guys who gave one of the most rousing speeches before the Super Bowl.
I heard about it.
Yeah. And he said that's something he wants to continue, because the older veterans on this team, even if they're here next year, they're not going to be here long term. And Reddick hopes to be. This is the first time he's getting a chance to be back in the same spot 2 years in a row for a while. Certainly as a good player, as a productive player. So I think he's looking forward to taking over a bigger leadership role, and I think that's good because they're going to need it when Fletcher's gone, if BG's gone, Slay's getting older. Like the leaders on that defense are, TJ Edwards is a free agent.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those leadership roles that you don't know where they're going to be next year.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, this defense is going to have a really different look. Most of the free agents to be weren't around. Hargrave popped in and popped out before anyone could talk to him. I didn't see TJ. Miles opened the door into the locker room, saw media, and closed the door again, which, I don't know. Nobody said a bad word about Miles Sanders all year. But anyway, who else? I did catch up with James Bradbury. I asked him if he thinks there's any chance he could be back here, and he said, "I'm not ruling anything out." He said, "I loved playing here." Said they haven't had any talks with Howie, but that's mainly because he didn't want to. He said, "I just wanted to focus on football as long as we were playing. I didn't want to have to talk to my agent about contracts, so I just told him to wait." He said, "I think we will talk." He really liked playing here. He hasn't been on a lot of good teams. I think the Giants won 9 games in his 2 years.
Yeah. You get a taste of it. You want a little bit more. And
he did say it's not just money. He said, "I want to play for a winning organization." And he said, I'm not going to come cheap, but there are other factors than money. And somebody, I think it was Elliott, said, so basically money, winning organization, and location. And he said, no, location doesn't really matter because anywhere I go, it's going to get cold eventually. So that's not really a factor. But
also, I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, but it was funny. But I don't think there's any chance they could sign Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Bradbury. I think they can sign one, and I think I'm assuming they would prioritize Chauncey just because safety. Do you want to pay 2 corners 15 plus? Probably not.
I would think Bradbury per year is going to get more. Chauncey's younger.
Yeah, and Bradbury might get like 17. Yeah, and and Chauncey, and I think Chauncey might answer that defensive leader thing that you talked about, where Bradbury's a very quiet guy, and I think the guys respect him, but I don't know if he's super comfortable in that role, but I think Chauncey would be. So that might be a factor.
I don't know. I don't think that should be a factor, though.
I don't think, but it's a kind of a side product, a byproduct of it. It's going to be interesting what the secondary looks like next year. I think Reed Blankenship needs to be a part of it. I think they're a better defense when he's playing.
Interesting.
I think, yeah. Epps is up. I always liked Epps. I thought he'd play a little better than he did. His coverage has been bad. He's a physical guy, good tackler, but got to give you something in coverage. Yeah. He just hasn't. So we'll see. But
I did want to mention on Bradbury, and we talked about it post-game pod, but I wanted to hit on it again. Give that dude a ton of credit for standing up and answering questions, raising his hand. And it wasn't just him. It was the entire team. They lost with grace. And I think they saw the 49ers and said, we're not going to do that. If we lose this game, we're not blaming anything else but ourselves. And even when they admitted, the field sucked, they had to play on that crappy field too.
I do think it hurt the Eagles more than it hurt the Chiefs.
Yeah, I
but
definitely
they didn't say that.
They didn't say that. I can say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a little disappointed some of the veterans didn't talk after the game. That's over and done with. But if you're going to be a leader and talk all year when things are going well,
Yeah, I generally share that philosophy, but I can't imagine what it's like to lose a Super Bowl.
That's fair.
I feel that way in regular season games, even playoff games, but losing that game, I can't even imagine what that feels like.
If 24-year-old Jalen Hurts can stand up there and accept and be accountable and speak with grace and honesty, Darius Slay can. Miles Sanders can.
Yeah. I guess. I can't.
It bothered me a little, but it's not a huge thing.
Yeah. Didn't bother me too much.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's about it. Weren't a lot of guys around.
Talked to Quez a little bit.
Yeah. How was that?
Raised his hand. Said, I lost my details on that drop. It was a huge drop. Said he was disappointed in the way he played really all season. He did reveal he's been playing with a grade 2 shoulder sprain, which, hey, some people are going to hear that and say, man, he's making excuses. I don't think he was. I mean, I think
if he was, he would have said it earlier.
Yeah. And look, I think he wants people to know he played through injury. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. He said it was on him for not playing better with it and not getting over the mental hurdle of playing with it. But if Quez is going to be the 3 next year, they need more out of him. They need to be able to rely on him. And I don't know if they can rely on the version of Quez we saw this year.
He played 42 snaps in that game Sunday. Just was a non-factor other than a drop. I don't think he can be 3 next year. I just don't. I think
he has a talent too.
I do too. But
and I've seen it from him. Like I saw it from him last year.
Yeah,
clearly has the talent to be a 3.
Yeah, but
maybe he's just not best suited in the slot. But in this offense, they move guys in and out. Like you have to be able to play both.
Yeah, I think they got to get better at that WR3. I think they will. So, Britton Covey waiting in the wings.
If I won the last cleanout day question, if you were a veteran on a team and you knew you were back next year, would you really clean out all your locker? Like, how would you choose what stuff to bring home? I was watching AJ had a lot of stuff.
I'm gonna show people a photo of what Jason Kelsey's locker looks like. This is hilarious. But go ahead.
Oh, that was my question. Like, what would you prioritize bringing home?
Well, I'm maybe not the neatest person ever.
Yeah, you might not be the guy to ask.
But
well, Kelsey's had a lot of years though.
That's Kelsey's locker. Yeah. No, I mean, look at my desk in the media house. I mean, I didn't clean it out today. We won't be back there. Well, we'll be back there Thursday.
I did clean
or Wednesday.
My desk.
Did you?
A little bit.
I saw media guides from like the 92 season.
Yeah. I'm very,
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe too much.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
At Nissan, we just made your choice for a new car an easier one than ever with our most exciting and fuel-efficient lineup. The choice is yours. Now get great offers across our full line. Shop your local Nissan store today at nissanusa.com.
Catch all the sports action and more at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Whether it's the money line or the pass line, there's something for everyone in a great sports book. Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Opioid addiction is a national public health crisis. The Someone You Know podcast from the Independence Blue Cross Foundation offers inspiring stories that challenge stigma, offer hope, and humanize the disease of addiction. Download the new Season 3 of Someone You Know on all major podcast platforms. Roob, it's not easy to get back to the Super Bowl, but we have some odds here for the Eagles, and we'll try to figure out whether or not they can actually get this done. These are from PointsBet. The shortest odds to get back to the Super Bowl, or to win it next year, I should say, the Chiefs, plus 550, then the Bills, plus 600, then the 49ers, plus 750, then the Eagles, plus 800.
Interesting. Niners.
Good roster, but
yeah.
You don't have a quarterback, or we don't know who the quarterback's going to be.
It's gonna be Purdy.
Are you sure about that?
No, but
okay.
I think it'll be Purdy. I don't know. Maybe they'll have open competition. I think they're going to trade Trey Lance.
Really?
Yeah.
I think it'll be an open competition. I think they gave up too much to get him, and you can't throw it away for a 7th-round pick on a hot streak.
Maybe. We'll see. But, hey, just something else to be motivated for. I think the Eagles are the best team in the NFC. I mean, look, we don't even know who's going to be on the team next year, but
we don't know the coordinators. We don't know the roster.
But we know the quarterback. We know the receivers. We know the tight end.
We know the culture, which matters.
We know the culture. And, there's still certainly some guys on defense that we know are going to be back. Slay's back. Reddick's back. Sweat's back. Milton Williams is back. Jordan Davis is going to have to make a big jump in year 2. But they have some pieces in place. And, I wouldn't – and Blankenship's back. I wouldn't mind them signing Sue if he wants to play another year.
36?
Yeah. I thought Linval Joseph started out better. I thought Sue finished better. I like the way he played the last month or so. I'd have no problem bringing him back for 15 snaps a game if he wants to play, and if he
might say, "Call me in November."
He might say, "Call me in November," or pay me, more. We'll see, but they do have some pieces in place. Maddox is back. He's got to stay healthy. And then they're going to sign some of the other guys. So it's not going to be like they're not going to be lost on that side of the ball. But, there's certainly some work to do.
Yeah, that's going to change a little bit.
Yeah.
It's time to get your swagger back with PointsBet Sportsbook. PointsBet, your move. All right, Roob, let's move on from that a little bit to my column, which
I think uplifting is the word I would use.
My point of my column, and if you haven't read it, it's on our site, NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com. But the idea here is that this loss should hurt for the Eagles and for their fans because I'm not saying they can't get back to the Super Bowl. I think they're in a really good spot. It's hard to imagine them having a better shot at it than they had this year for a lot of reasons.
And I thought you laid out a pretty good case. I think we differ on this. I thought your piece is well done, and people should read it to get kind of a, you just put into perspective just how every team that gets to a Super Bowl thinks they're going to the next one, and so few do. The ones that do have a Tom Brady or a John Elway or a Troy Aikman or a Joe Montana, Patrick Mahomes, and I think Jalen Hurts is at that level. I think Jalen Hurts is at that level. See, I just said he does that. He says something twice for emphasis. Yeah. I didn't do that on purpose, but I really think as long as he's here and healthy, they're going to be really good. Look, if he's got James Thrash and Todd Pinkston, but he's going to have good players around him, and I think Howie is. If I trust any GM to be able to build a roster around a $50 million quarterback, it's Howie. So I think they're going to be competitive. I think they're going to be good. I think they're going to be well coached. And I look at the NFC, and I just don't see a lot of great teams. I don't see a lot of great quarterbacks, a lot of great young quarterbacks. So while everything you said is true, I guess I'm just a little more optimistic. I can see this team really being a problem for people for the next few years.
Yeah, Roob, I agree that Hurts is that level, and maybe that'll be enough, but I still don't think it'll ever get any easier. Not easier, but it'll never be more set up than it was this year because, and one of those reasons is in a way because of Jalen, because he's been so good. Now you got to pay that guy. And you've had the benefit of having him on a really minimal salary for this run. And that's going to change. And they'll backload the deal if they get it done. So like the next couple years will be more manageable, but it's going to be harder in terms of roster construction.
It will be harder. If the cap keeps going up $20 million a year, by the time those big cap figures hit, it might be $280 million. So
it'll help. It'll never be this percentage.
I agree. And unless he's making minimum in his 10th year. But it's true. And I think, like I said, you have some good points in there. I guess I just tend to be more of an optimist when it comes to that. I just look at the landscape of the conference.
That helps.
The division. I think look at the quarterback. Washington, we don't even know who Washington's quarterback is going to be. Daniel Jones made big strides, but I just don't. Well, I don't think he's a guy that you're sitting there thinking we're not going to win the Super Bowl because we're in the same division as Daniel Jones. Mm-hmm. Dak, this team has a hard time with Dak. We know that, but how old is Dak now? Was he 29?
Around 30.
30. He's 29. He'll be 30 before training camp, and has 2 career playoff wins in what year was he drafted? 16?
Yeah.
2 playoff wins in 17 years. So Jalen has as many as he does.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think they're going to – no team still won the division back-to-back since
it's crazy.
The Eagles in 03 and 04.
And every time we think the Eagles win one, we're like, oh, they'll win next year for sure.
They will. They will win next year.
But honestly, that kind of illustrates my point. It's like, it's just tough.
Yeah,
and
it's a fair point. I'm not disagreeing with the point. I think they're going to be all right.
Injury stuff too. I mean, they weren't completely healthy in the Super Bowl. 22 of 22 starters.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen again.
No, but I mean, look, in 17 they won a Super Bowl without JP and Jordan Hicks.
Yeah.
Chris Maragos.
They can do it. Makes it harder. Makes it harder.
Chris Maragos might have more money than Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, he does. He will.
He does now.
Yeah.
Well, I
don't know how that pays out.
Maybe there's an appeal. I don't know.
Yeah. But my point is that just it's tough. And if you're dejected, you have a right to be, because there are no guarantees. And even A.J. Brown was very realistic. He was asked about if he worries about getting to another one. And he says, yeah,
sure.
It's you
really
have
hard.
to.
Yeah.
You have to. It's not like a disrespect thing to the Eagles. It's a respect to the league and just how difficult this process is. And the fact that they had a 10-point lead in the Super Bowl and were so close to getting it done and couldn't get it done. It's brutal.
How many has Mahomes been to? 3?
Yeah.
Right. He's 27.
Yeah.
Jalen's the next best quarterback in football.
Okay.
I think what Mahomes is doing, Jalen can do in the NFC. I really do.
I don't think he's at that level.
I don't think he's at that level.
Okay.
I think he's the next. Oh, I wouldn't say that. I think he's the next best guy though.
Okay. I think you have to be at that level to do what Mahomes is doing.
And I also think if he plays the way he did Sunday, he's at that level. If he plays like that every week, which might be impossible. And I'll tell you what, if you take, up until he got hurt in Chicago, plus Sunday when it's probably the first time he was really healthy, if you play at that level.
I'm curious to see that. That's making me think about all those quarterback lists that come out. Where will Jalen be now? I bet he's obviously still behind Mahomes. I bet he's still going to be behind Burrow.
I think Burrow's the only other guy.
Those lists.
Yeah.
Would you have him above Josh Allen now?
I think now I would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Above Herbert.
A lot of picks.
Above Herbert.
Isn't it funny how all these guys are in the AFC? You're mentioning.
Oh, that's a nice thing.
Yeah.
You don't have to go through them.
Who's the second best quarterback in the NFC? I mean, Dak?
It depends on what version of Aaron Rodgers.
Who knows what conference he'll be in.
True.
He's got to go to a dark place first.
That terrifies the heck out of me.
I know.
I
have nightmares about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. There's a reason we're scared of the dark.
Yeah.
One of our senses gets stripped away from us.
Yeah. I'm so afraid of the dark. I sleep with ring lights on me.
That was my point, though. Just, not saying they can't get back there. I think they have a really good base set in place here.
How did that column go over on Twitter?
I haven't looked at my mentions in a while.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's get to the coordinators, because Shane Steichen, now officially the head coach in Indianapolis, Jonathan Gannon officially the head coach in Arizona. Whatever you think about one of those coaches, that's who we're getting to here. It's tough to lose both coordinators. It's rare. In fact, you looked it up. It's never happened to the Eagles where they've lost both of their coordinators to head coaching gigs in the same offseason.
Yeah, and they've never lost a defensive coordinator to another team. They've had defensive coordinators leave and become head coaches. Jeff Fisher, Wade Phillips, your pal, and Sean McDermott, obviously, speaking of the Bills. It is a big loss. And, I think one of the big things about this year was that continuity. I did a story in OTAs, I think, about every coach came back in the same role.
So rare.
So rare. It was the first time it happened with the Eagles since like the 70s, and there was only like 6 assistants back then. So yeah, that was huge. That continuity, not just as far as the player-coach relationship, but as Nick told me, the coaches now feel so comfortable with each other, and they're on the next level as far as communicating and being able to work together and planning, because they don't have to start from scratch. They're starting from a position of familiarity. So now you're on both sides of the ball. And I think that's one of the reasons there's a good chance they'll fill both from within.
Yeah. I mean, offense, I think, is a slam dunk.
Brian Johnson, I mean, that's tailor-made. You promote Brian Johnson, then you promote Alex Tanney to quarterback's coach. I think that's definitely going to happen. They love Alex Tanney. Yeah. He was in the league a long time, didn't play, but yeah, he's smart, a really smart guy. I think that's the move. Yeah.
The question then becomes who's calling plays. And that's a loss to lose Shane Steichen. He had such a great feel for it.
I'll bet it's Brian Johnson.
I mean, just diabolical.
Yeah.
As a play caller. That's my best. I'm going to tell people in Indy, diabolical.
Yeah, that's good.
Brian Johnson or Shane Steichen. I don't know. It'll be Brian Johnson. Maybe Nick will take it back. Kevin Patullo, I think, has the potential to do it. I really liked Nick in that CEO role, not having
Nick
too much on his plate.
I don't think Nick's going to call the plays. I think it'll be Brian Johnson.
Okay.
That's my guess. Stout could call plays,
Run.
I don't think he would do that, but Shane that's a good word for it. He was, I think he was just so, I don't know what the word is. He understood so well what teams were going to do defensively against them, and he was always ready for anything. They scored. I mean, they scored 30 points in each playoff game. It was really incredible. They scored 110 points in the postseason, 112, whatever it was. But I mean, he's got to find a quarterback. But I remember going to John Harbaugh's first press conference when he got named. We drove down with I think Jordan Rannon and Andy Schwartz. We all drove down to Owings Mills or wherever it was.
Yeah.
And I remember they kept asking Harbaugh. They hadn't drafted Flacco yet. He would be drafted a few months later. And they kept asking Harbaugh, who's your quarterback? And he's like, I don't know, but I'm telling you, we're going to have a good quarterback. I don't know who it is, but I promise you we're going to have a good quarterback. And I feel like, I love the notion of Shane working with a young quarterback. I think it'll be great for him. Got to find him, but I think they will. I think he will. And it'll be interesting with both these guys who they bring with them if the Eagles lose any other coaches.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, Nick has joked about don't take anyone, but he took people from Indianapolis. He took who to take? He took Patullo and Kevin Michael.
Jason Michael.
I always say Kevin Michael. Jason Michael. I mean, two pretty important coaches from that staff.
Yeah.
And Gannon.
Right.
Well, Gannon was going to leave either way.
Yeah.
But he took some.
What about defense?
The obvious internal candidate is Denard Wilson, and then DK McDonald, who Nick has known longer than anyone on this staff, and who they rave about would be he'd get the promotion to defensive backs.
He
coach.
Loves DK.
So I think both of those coaches are ready for those promotions, but it's also a good chance to ask yourself, philosophically, do we want to keep going in the way that they're going? And I think it's a fair question.
It's a fair question, but I think 14-1 or 14-3, whatever you call it, a Super Bowl appearance kind of answers that question. I'd want to keep things you're always evolving and growing, but I'd want to kind of keep the same structure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think there were flaws in Gannon's defense and his philosophy. So I think he's a good coach, and I think he'll be a pretty good head coach, honestly. I think he could be a better head coach than he was a defensive coordinator, just because I think he has the interpersonal skills to really thrive at that level. And I'm not saying he was a bad defensive coordinator. I think the truth kind of lies somewhere in between the perception of him, which couldn't be any lower among a lot of the fan base, and what the numbers tell you.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think for a second-year defensive coordinator to do what he did is really impressive. I think he'll continue to become a better coach. I think the thing that bothers me is that he's always been held to a different standard than all the other coaches. Like you look at Sunday's game, all right, the offense, they scored a lot of points, but they couldn't run the ball. They gave up 7 points on a fumble. You look at special teams, they gave up really essentially 7 points on a return down to the 5, I think. But nobody's like fire Shane Steichen, fire Michael Clay. It's the players. But then when the defense messes up, it's always Gannon. Like there's just an element of it being personal that bothers me. The defense did not play well. They were not coached well Sunday, although they really only gave up 24 points. But it's the whole focus is always on fire Gannon. Like they have one. Every time there's a breakdown, it's fire Gannon, but it's never fire Michael Clay or fire Shane Steichen or Nick Sirianni. Every coach, every team has bad plays that they want back, and places they can get better and improve. I think what really bothered me about the Gannon thing was it was personal.
I think some of it was, but honestly,
no, I think all of it was.
No, I disagree with that. I don't think that's fair because I think, look, a guy misses a tackle. That's certainly not on Jonathan Gannon. They coach them to tackle. They miss a tackle. That's bad on that player. But if a quarterback slices and dices them down the field on a methodical drive, like some of that is scheme.
I mean, quarterbacks, they were the number one pass defense in the league. And then they had a terrible second half against one of the greatest quarterbacks in history. And it happens. And, it was a bad game. They got to the Super Bowl.
They did.
You got 14 points along the way.
And then they faced a really good quarterback.
No, they faced one of the greatest of all time.
Okay. But we've seen now over the period of 2 years when they face a good quarterback. And look, I know some of this is obvious that, you face a good quarterback, it's harder to stop them. But I don't know if this defense is set up to succeed against those elite passers.
Well, I don't know if any defense is set up to stop Patrick Mahomes. I mean, they held Kirk Cousins to 7 points. I don't know. I'm trying to think of the good quarterbacks. They beat Aaron Rodgers. I don't know. They didn't face a lot of good quarterbacks.
I know, and
that's not their. I mean, they faced who was on the schedule.
Yeah, no, and I totally understand
they
that.
Knocked Brock Purdy out of the game.
If you're gonna, I saw that. But if you're gonna win a Super Bowl, you need to be able to stop an elite quarterback. And I'm not saying it's easy.
I agree. You also need to not give up a 70-yard punt return and fumble the ball at the 36-yard line, whatever it was. So
which facet of the game was, not that we have to play the blame game, but like which facet of the game was it most fault in the Super Bowl? All of them?
Sure.
At the most fault?
Sure. If it wasn't for the punt return, special teams, they win that game.
Okay.
If it wasn't for Jalen fumbling at the 36 and return for a touchdown, they win that game.
Okay.
If it wasn't for the defense not getting any stops in the second half, they win that game. They were all equally.
I disagree with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I believe they all played roles, and it's a team game. Obviously, the defense had a harder task trying to stop a really good offense. But if I'm trying to like divvy up the blame here, more of it goes to the defense.
Well, I mean, look, if you want to assign numerical, values, maybe that's true. But I don't know. The whole thing just bothers me, and I think he'll do well. And I wish, whoever replaces Gannon, I hope that people, are fair in their criticisms of him. And if he sucks, he sucks. If he's great, give him some credit.
Yeah. I like Denard. I think Denard would be a fine choice.
Bradbury talked about him a little bit.
Yeah. His guys really like, we were talking to Slay. Gosh, how long ago was that? And Slay's like, why is this guy not a defensive coordinator yet?
Yeah. Yeah. And Bradbury was saying what a good teacher he is and good communicator, and everyone likes him. And I don't know. Maybe that would be a reason for him to.
Would you have? So we've seen this before with coaching staffs. We saw it with Doug. We saw it with Andy. When you're starting to get pieces taken away, there is good in promoting from within.
Sure.
It creates a very good atmosphere. But then do you have to worry about the flip side of that is like the talent leaving the building and not replenishing it? Like, do you have to be cognizant of that as an organization to balance that scale a little bit? Like, you want to promote from within. It breeds a good culture, but you also want to bring new talent in at times too. Like, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, I think we've seen that Nick has a pretty good feel for young assistant coach talent. So you have to trust that. But I mean, Jeff Lurie, I remember having a conversation 20 years ago with Jeff about the importance of it was up at Lehigh, the importance of promoting from within. He demands it of all his departments, and they know that. And it's not just, and I think, he's not telling Nick who to hire, but what a great way to build a culture when people know that if they are good at their job, they have a really good chance to move up. I think that makes it worth it. Yeah. I mean, you could have trouble keeping the pipeline going, but you have to trust your coach, and they've done a pretty good job with that. Andy didn't when he lost that first group of assistants, and it's one of the reasons they had a tough time there from 2005 on, and they won a little bit, but they weren't the same because all those guys left for head coaching jobs. But Nick's now, I mean, the Nick's Sirianni coaching tree's too deep now, which is after 2 years is remarkable, really. And tells you what a good judge, evaluator of coaching talent he is.
Yeah, and I think it was one of the things they really liked about him when they hired him was he came in with a plan of like, these are the guys I want to bring in.
Yeah.
Here's why I want to bring them in. Here's why they're going to be good. And he was right, because 2 years later, they're both head coaches of their own.
And it strikes me, it just occurred to me, if Brian Johnson gets the offensive coordinator job and Denard gets the defensive, you have two African-American coordinators, which you would hope for them would lead possibly to opportunities to be head coaches at some point.
Yeah.
Get ahead of ourselves, but
especially Brian Johnson. I mean, if Jalen keeps developing and he becomes what we think he can become,
he'll be a head coach.
You would think so. He's really young too. I mean, he's in his early 30s, right?
Yeah, I think he is.
Yeah, impressive young coach.
All-time leading passer at Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was on the cover of the NCAA video game. That's where a lot of people know him from.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah, he's really impressive. They both are. Jalen loves him. What's Shane? Shane's 37.
Yeah.
He's one of the younger head coaches. Gannon's 39, I believe. They both are.
Yeah, both. Yeah, all young coaches for the most part on this staff.
I think for a quarterback, there's very, very few black quarterback coaches. That's just, I was reading an article about that out in Arizona, but I think that relationship between the coaching staff and the quarterback is so pivotal to any team's success, that having that continuity, especially on that side of the ball. I think on both sides it's important, but they're really lucky to have them.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild offseason here.
It is.
Eagles have to hire 2 coordinators. They have 1 million free agents coming up. They're going to have 2 first-round picks in the draft.
All in the next few months.
Yeah, it's all coming fast, and we'll have plenty of Eagle Eyes.
It's crazy when you're in the Super Bowl. Like how quickly I was talking to Jordan Mailata, and everyone was like shaking hands and have a great, and I said, yeah, I'll see you in 8 weeks. He's like, 8 weeks, mate? 8 weeks, mate? I said, yeah, OTAs. He's like, what are you talking about? I said, it'll be April. He's like, oh my God. And he cursed me out laughing and said, I think in my exit meeting with Nick, I'm going to tell him to cancel OTAs. So, yeah, but the season never ends for us.
It does not. We'll be back with you soon. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. That's it. For Roob, I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.